Hello students, you are welcome to the second session of this course SS208, where we are going to be discussing pathogenesis of infection. Pathogenesis of infection. When you say pathogenic disease, you refer to as a disease brought about by organism in human. This can be caused by bacteria, fungi, viruses, parasites, or prions, among others, all which bring about different conditions. So when you say pathogenic disease, you are referring to those that are brought about by pathogenic microorganisms. At this level, I believe when you are through with this study session, you'll be able to describe stages of infectious diseases, to explain pathogenicity of infection, and discuss opportunist infection. Now, we want to look at stages of infectious disease. We are saying that microorganisms will be present. Then, apart from that, there must be an host that will allow this microorganism to invade his or her body before we can now talk of disease or infection. When you say stage of disease, I have here about 6 stages. In the first instance, there must be an encounter between microbial species and the host, or we have familigenous microbial flora which are found in the body surface of the host, which ordinarily are not there to cause infection, but some of them may cause infection when the condition becomes unfavorable, and these are referred to as endogenous infection. But when you have organism that you acquire through external contact, you call it exogenous infection or diseases. This one can be started through some major routes. See, direct contact, do you ingest, or through what they call oral route of infection, or it is through the placenta when the baby is in utero. We call it transplacentally. Or at times, it may be through the venereal route. All those are how human beings can have encounter with microorganisms. Then you talk of colonization. How would the organism colonize themselves in the body of the host? Initial encounter with new microbial species may result in nothing more than the fact that this organism will find a means of establishing themselves in the tissue of the host. So when they do that, they colonize themselves, because microorganism need to survive and multiply under local conditions to establish itself in its new habitat. So it must bring up some method of adaptation to adjust to the new area where it has found itself. Once they were able to do that, the next thing for the organism is to penetrate the tissue of the host. When it does that, it enters the tissue of the host, and through that method, it continues to spread in the tissue of the host, leaving the local area where it has fed the host, and will now extend to surrounding tissues. And then, with that, it can enter through the vein or lymphatic vessels, and with that, it can generate itself to all parts of the body. And what we do next is that it will start causing damages. It causes damages on the tissue of the host, after which the body system will be initiated to fight that microbial agent, or person may take drug that will kill the microorganism And last but not least, we will see in that stages will be resolution. That is when the body tries to resolve the crisis or the injury suffered from that microbial infection. Let's now look at what they call pathogenicity. Pathogenicity. Well, it means nothing but to tell you how an organism can cause diseases, can cause pathogen. Some organisms change their surface antigenic makeup intermittently to evade the host immune system. That is the commonest way by which microorganisms invade the host immune system. They will change their surface antigenic makeup to look like that of that host, and they will now use it to create a bait for immune system, thinking that it is part of them. They will not want to destroy themselves, and with that organism will be able to enter into the host tissue. So what we are seeing here is that they can do this through varieties of method. They can secrete some chemicals which will be used to guard against the organism from being destroyed by the host immunity. And with that, you will see that in the last slide we talk of how they penetrate and spread in the tissues of the host. But the products of disease producing genes are placed under 6 categories. They are infection, they will invade, they will first of all adhere. Adhesion is the first one to the cell wall of the host. They will now invade. When they will now start producing toxin, they will cloak, seeding and forming what they call scavenging factors. So these are how organic microorganisms establish themselves in the body tissue of the host. And before we go to the opportunistic infection, we are saying that these pathogens, they have what it takes to invade the tissue of the host. They have what we take to ensure that they switch on and off to respond to the immune system of that host, so that that immune system will not recognize them as foreign and they will see them as part of them. They don't want to destroy themselves until these microorganisms now, after enveloping the functions of the immune system, enter the tissue of the host and will start causing problem. And this could be a sort of activity of microorganism to tissue, and then how that cells of microorganism are so susceptible to viral multiplication, and a lot of other factors may be included. But now we talk of opportunist infection. If an organism is capable of causing disease in an apparently healthy individual, it is clearly aggressively pathogenic. If it is normally incapable of causing disease, but can do so only when the human body is compromised in some way, that organism is said to be opportunist. And this infection are of particular importance in hospital patients and people whose immune system are compromised by drugs or infection, particularly by HIV. What we are saying is that some organisms are not pathogenic in their nature, and they are found in the body of their host as normal flora. Some of them are still even helpful to their host. But in case there are some condition or conditions that will make them to be aggressive and change their normal being to abnormal, they become pathogenic, and which means they can start causing infection in the host, where they have been living confidently for many years without causing any problem onto the host. That kind of infection is with what we call opportunistic infection. If you have studied HIV/AIDS very well, it comes along with some opportunistic infection, because HIV itself cannot cause disease, but it has the ability of suppressing the immunity of the host. When the immunity is suppressed, some friendly microorganisms in the body will now come up to become unfriendly, and they start causing infection. Those infections caused by immunosuppression is what's referred to as opportunistic infection. Example is pneumonia that we found in HIV/AIDS. We call it pneumocystis carinii pneumonia because they are opportunistic infection resulting from the immunosuppression of the host tissue caused by HIV infection. And with that, we have come to the end of this study session. And when next we meet, we'll be able to discuss further on some interesting topic on this dialing course NSC 208, which is cellular pathology. Until then, I wish you all the best.